explain with themselves. We'll introduce them first. They'll also talk about themselves and the technology that they've been playing with. And then we'll move on to a fireside chat Q&A, and then lastly, leave room for some Q&A as well. So I'll introduce myself first, DC Jashunder. We are a small team of tech business builders. We transformed a adjacent industry group, smart vending, in vendor route laundry. We loaded laundry machines in apartments, college campuses, and hotels. We probably touched 1 million machines, making them smart, working with about 17 route operators, both national and regional. What we did was, by doing that, we connected over 1 million consumers with the operators, right? And through about thousands of property managers. What it ended up being for the route operators in terms of the operational costs, about 40% savings through smart dispatching and modernizing the operations. On the consumer side, right, in terms of revenue, about 25% net new revenue, simply creating a convenient consumer experience, right, and also giving the right payment price and so on. Now that's all glory. We have 3 panelists who are doing that right now with in the food and beverage and the vending space, smart vending space. So let me turn over to April to introduce herself and the work she's doing.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I see a ton of familiar faces, so thank you for being here. And for those that I don't know, my name is April Cathcart. I have the privilege of leading the unattended retail team for Mars Wrigley Confectionery for the U.S. market. So if I don't know you, would absolutely love to chat. We'll be at the show all week. Excited to be on this panel today to really talk about the consumer. So there are a ton of technology evolutions and innovations, and one of the things at Mars that we always talk about is how it has to come back to the consumer, and whatever we're doing has to be right for the consumer. So as we are, as an industry, juggling a ton of new technology, figuring out how do we make it work, at what level do we need to sell it between gatekeepers and end consumers, keeping the lens, this is the lens that I'll have today, is around the end consumer, and how do we kind of marry those two up in a way that is a mutual benefit for everybody involved. My background is in CPG. I was at General Mills for 10 years. I was at Pfizer on the consumer healthcare side, and then have been at Mars for the last 5 years, and then in this channel, convenience services, for about 3 years. So heavy background in traditional retail, which you'll kind of hear come through as we talk about consumers and how they shop. It's really important for us to be aware of how they're shopping within this channel, but also the other trends that are happening, and how do we make sure that we're staying relevant when there's things like decom and personalization and other factors that are affecting our consumers. So thanks a ton for being here, and I will pass it over to Alex.
Hey everyone, Alex Sophocleos. I'm on the Amazon Just Walk Out technology team. My focus is on our partnership and relationship with primarily CPG customers. So done some work with April, some other CPGs. And then also relevant to this audience, we're starting to move the technology into the micro market formats, and that's a strategy I'm leading. So happy to share some insights we have gathered. And like April mentioned, the title of this panel is Working from the Customer Backwards, is ethos for Amazon. So what are the customer needs? How are we addressing those with our technology? And just one note, most people know the technology from Amazon Go stores, and those are proprietary Amazon stores. Just Walk Out was built for third-party operators like yourself. So Amazon manages the technology, but the store, replenishment, product selection, merchandising, all of that is managed by yourselves, the operators. I'll pass on to Kenneth here. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Kenneth Lin. I see a few people that I just met at NAMA. Thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting me. So Vendera is creating the new way of vending through AI coolers. So we're sort of recreating the consumer experience to almost feel like it's as natural and as intuitive as you were opening your own fridge at home. So if you look at the chart here, so how our technology works is if you have a credit card with you or even debit card, you swipe and to authorize it open. And then what you do is you take anything out that that you like, and then if you decide to change your mind, you put it back. Sort of the algorithm will sort of do his job. And then so if you wait for about 30 seconds, the receipt will come on your phone. So yeah, we're sort of redefining how consumers are engaging with vending machines here in the States, and we're sort of trying to make the experience as seamless as possible and as familiar, and also it's built around convenience. So my personal background is in retail. I consider myself like almost like a lifelong retailer, from really selling golf tickets to my neighbors when I was 6 to later on starting my own business and doing trades between Africa and here when I was in high school. And then now I started Vendera about 3 years ago, and that's what we're working on.
All right, thank you, panelists. It was helpful to kind of learn about you and technology. Let me kind of set the stage for the fireside chat portion. As you can see on the far left, you see the route operator comes in various forms and shapes. We manage restocking like on the route, and then you'll be typically selling to what we call the gatekeeper, right? The account or the client out there. But what we really be wanting to embracing is the end consumer. It could be the resident, the traveler, the student, or even like the family member, the preferences of the end consumer. And at the bottom, you'll see the technology, right? So these panelists are representing the smartest technology out there today to embrace these to basically gel these three players out there. So with that, let me move on to April. April, from your experience, can you help us understand where's the big disconnect between the end consumer and the gatekeeper?
Absolutely. So in my experience, the biggest connect between the gatekeeper and the consumer is that they're looking for two different things. Obviously, the gatekeeper needs to be focused on meeting very surface level things that they need in order to sustain the business and for it to be profitable. So they need to focus on things like price and services and contracts, which really shifts the focus away from what's actually delighting or motivating the consumer. So the consumers they don't care about contracts and all of the nitty-gritty behind the scenes and all of the amazing work that the operators do. But the consumers care about convenience. They care about speed, brands, product variety, freshness, and really a seamless experience. And ultimately, if you want to have your consumer have a solid experience and not even think about all the things that are going on behind the scenes of what you're doing to make sure that they have a seamless experience. So when you can actually marry the two, I think you can drive real engagement, you can drive repeat use, and ultimately incremental revenue, which is I think why we're all here. The most successful partnerships that we have seen is really with operators when they can help thinking through the client lens and the consumer lens and finding how do you marry the two together. And there's many ways to do it. We'll talk about it today within the panel and with some of the technology that these gentlemen represent.
Thanks, April. So if you really look at some of the consumer behavior trends, April, can you share some of your experiences how the consumer behavior really drove the technology change?
Yes, absolutely. So I think to sum this one up, I think it's important to think about three main points. And so it's really around consumer first wins. And I think that if we could all have that mindset, ultimately at the end of the day, whether we're working through technology or brand assortment or pricing or location or which, is it going to be a smart cooler or just walk out or whatever it is, what does that consumer in that location during that day part need? That will be the right answer. That's what's going to drive the sales, the incrementality. In terms of technology, not having technology just for the sake of having technology. There's a lot of very sexy technology out there, and I think Amazon Just Walk Out is a great example. And Alex mentioned we've been working with them, and we've launched 2 stores in the Vegas airport, so shameless plug, if you guys have not seen them, please go to Terminals A and B and you'll see the First Class Snack Shack that is powered by Amazon Just Walk Out technology. But we have a lot of learnings from those stores, and we know that we would not just go to a tire center and put an Amazon Just Walk Out there. There are factors that dictate what a successful location looks like. And so while it is fun technology, it's not going to make sense everywhere, and it's going to be frustrating ultimately to the end consumer. So I think the third key point here is really around pitching smart. So as we think about the use of technology, thinking through the proof points, really demonstrating the upgrades, and how does it make sense to each situation. This channel is so fragmented, but so are the technology offerings. And so we actually, as we think about localization and personalization, which are 2 very, very emerging trends, and I wouldn't even say emerging anymore, they are main trends that are hitting us. That has to carry through, not only through the assortment and selection, but through the technology as well. And meeting your consumer with what makes sense for them. So do they need cashless payment options? Do they need cash payment options based on where they live or their socioeconomic status or whatever it might be? So the main theme here, kind of the summary of all of this, is it all goes back to the consumer, and the technology there should be able to dictate that. I think an example of this is we see promotions within this channel, and they're starting to become more and more, and there's been some fabulous results from them. There's loyalty programs, there's bundling deals, there's digital platforms. Ultimately, they all increase basket size and frequency if you can reach the consumer in a way that makes sense. If you're just throwing a bundle in front of somebody that doesn't typically want a bundle, or maybe they only have $2, they can't buy a Snickers and a water, then not the place to do it. So I think getting very granular and getting to know the consumers is really how we're going to bring the technology to life in a way that moves the industry forward and meets the needs of the consumer.
Great. Yeah, I love the localization and personalization. So in laundry, we've seen like people love using the app for payments, but when it comes to a hotel, specifically a hotel, having a credit card swipe from the way to go. Nobody wants to go with that. All right, so let's go to Alex. Alex, I know you've got a lot of experience, right, with different sizes of DWO stores. Mm-hmm. Let's turn the question around. So what kind of, from your experience, right, what technology trends or technology actually shape the consumer behavior, right? So if you can share some technology types, right, that can be on operators' radar, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, lots of technology trends, and I think this entire conference has some great examples of that, right? Just a lot of ways to call that out. Mobile payments now accounting for 30% of all transactions, and unattended retail is one. And frictionless, of course, is what I'm going to focus on. And when I say frictionless, I refer to both smart coolers and the Just Walk Out technology, right? It's an environment when you're removing friction, whether it be waiting in line or in some cases fumbling to scan your items at the micro market, right? And that causing a line, right? So it's removing friction, and that's what I mean by the category of it. So when we look at that and remove those friction barriers, in terms of consumer habits that we're seeing, there's twofold. One is repeat business, so the frequency in which people are visiting the store. You start to think of this in community environments, whether it's a university or apartment buildings, where a customer has the opportunity to frequently visit it. They're going to go, or you're seeing that they go back more often, right? And so that increases the frequency and throughput of your store. University of California, San Diego is a great example for us. We have 4 stores on that campus, and we're seeing that that's a normal part of the student journey now, is visiting those stores on a regular basis because there aren't going to be any lines, right? They can go in and out very quickly, get what they need, and make it to their next class probably still late because that's how students are, but nevertheless, a fast shopping environment. So frequency is one. Another, and actually my favorite, is when we look at basket size. This is increasing in our stores, and there's a great report that just came out. I saw that April shared with me as well with Cantaloupe, and how the transaction value of smart stores, which in this research was primarily smart coolers, but smart stores has a 101% transaction value compared to vending machines. So customers are spending 101% more. And compared to micro markets, it's 60, I think it was 68% more, 60 or 68. Now, the first one, vending machines, I think we can all nod our heads and understand that because the assortment is going to be larger in a micro market, just walk out, in terms of what you can fit in that store. But it surprised me with micro markets when we think about scan and go. And I'm hypothesizing here that the reason for this is a psychological effect in terms of customers scanning each item, seeing the total value increase, and maybe deciding, I don't need that third item, or that puts me over my limits. Where if with a smart cooler and a just walk out store, you're authenticating at entry, meaning you're presenting a credit card to enter the experience, you grab whatever you want and you leave. And then a receipt is sent to you afterwards. So you're not seeing the transaction add up in real time. So those two factors I see as consumer habits or trends: increased frequency, increased basket size. And then from an operator perspective, am I going too long with this question? No, okay, from an operator perspective, that's of course putting smiles on people's faces, right? Those two factors increase sales, but we also see the analytics. April touched on that a little bit. With these technologies, you can look at consideration rate of products now, right? So how many times in a smart cooler did someone grab an item, look at it, and put it back? And that can help you with your merchandising and your assortment. With just walk-out stores, you can start seeing the traffic patterns. It might not be as relevant for smaller stores, right? There's only so far you can go, but larger stores, you start to understand dwell time in front of coolers, and then also traffic flow, so you can optimize your planogram better and thus increase your revenue. And the second point with operators is that authentication that I mentioned, where it kind of has a built-in anti-theft kind of solution, right? Where you're presenting a credit card, once you enter, anything you grab, even if you're trying to be, we've experienced this with students particularly, trying to be sneaky and put something in your pocket very quickly, that's a take, right? That's something the technology tracks and will charge you when you exit the store. So it also reduces the shrink element. Yeah, sorry, hopefully I didn't go too long on that one.
That's amazing, yeah, very helpful. So let's I guess dive deeper into the highly public areas, right? So think of some of the airports you operate, April touched upon, or like stadiums, right? What can operators learn from your experiences so far?
Yeah, so highly public spaces, I think of a lot of traffic, people are on the go, and what on the go people want? They want speed, they want convenience, right? So this is where I think the technology really flourishes. DC, you mentioned stadiums. We have about 260, 280 stores deployed in the US and 3 other countries, and about 70% of those are in stadiums right now, because think of the experience, you don't want to miss any action, in and out, you grab. Then we have universities as a public place, and then airports. And in all those environments, the airports specifically, theft does become a consideration when we think about traditional micro markets with scan and go, right? Maybe not every item will be scanned appropriately, and even in fulfillment centers or maybe other public spaces I can't think of right now. So it goes back to my point that I mentioned, where you authenticate at entry, and so now when you're able to solve the puzzle of security and convenience, you're able to open up a lot more retail locations for your business. So going back to the airports, here, convention centers potentially, just a lot more options. And it's one of the factors that we saw in our 2 stores that we have at the Las Vegas airport that April mentioned, in terms of having that secure, fast, easy shopping environment.
Can I actually ask a question?
Of course.
I'm not the moderator, but so theft, you brought this up, and I think for a lot of the operators in the room, that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And as we think about micro markets, there are some that have so much stuff that they're going back to vending, even though we know if we go back to consumer first, micro markets are better for that, but it's not profitable, 20% of your product is being stolen. So, and we are hearing theft rates up to 20 to 40%. So, I know you've looked at this a lot. Can you just share with the group what you're seeing, how the solution is, or what the numbers are with Amazon, with your technology?
Yeah, it ranges. Some locations are more thrifty than others, I guess. But we have seen, I can't specify, obviously these are not our stores, they're customer stores, so that data is privileged, but generally speaking, some locations, some problem locations would see 28% theft. And again, I can't say where, but that was a problem point that we were brought in to solve, and we did, right? So our stores, the earlier picture during my introduction slide, you saw that it just had a regular swing gate. There are more secure methods in terms of high glass as well. And I'm not saying these stores are impenetrable, right? If somebody wants to break in, they will break in no matter what you do, right? But it's a deterrent, and it's a deterrent that we see is working. So if that is a factor with your business, this could be a very good solution to help you generate the income potential of what you would see with the micro market compared to vending, but in a secure environment. Yeah, and I know it's probably on everyone's mind in terms of cost, right? Is it worth the investment? And that's something we go through with all of our customers and try to focus on at least having a top range of 3-year return on investment of the technology, where in some cases, when we're looking at 28% theft, we could have an ROI in less than a year, right? But it's an exercise, case by case, that we take on with customers to understand.
Thanks. That's a question. So I think, I really believe this is the smartest technology out there, and I think it's accessible, right? In one way or the other. So April, let me come back to you. If you think of different advantages of this smart technology and different features, how can an operator now go back to the gatekeeper and make a convincing case, right? How to introduce the smartest forms of technology?
So if I understand the question, it's how do operators go to the gatekeepers, sell them the technology in ways that make sense to them? Yep. So I think operators, we, and I think all of us do this, not just operators, we're so inundated in what we do on a day-to-day basis that our jargon makes sense. But as you go to a gatekeeper, for lack of a better term, or a location, somebody running the location, they tend to speak a different language than we do. And so I think at a very basic level, it's just speaking their language, understanding what is most important to them, what are they measured on, what are the goals of the market, and then how does your technology factor into each of those. And it sounds so basic, but I think sometimes we just run so fast, if we can sit down for a minute and think like, okay, if I'm this person and I'm responsible for a market in this Amazon warehouse, what am I being measured on? What do I need from XYZ operator in order to satisfy my employees? And is it around reducing theft? Is it around supplementing pricing? There's a number of different things that they could be looking to do. And so I think understanding what the decision maker is basing their decision on is the very first thing. And then I think it's taking the solution that we have, that the technology has, and putting it in a way that makes sense to that person. So as an example, faster checkout. It's not just a cool feature, but faster checkout increases throughput. It reduces lines. It drives more transactions per day. So there's tangible value that when translated into a way that the gatekeeper understands, and they are probably thinking about lines and transactions and all of those things that I just mentioned. It's putting it in a way that makes sense for them. Personalization, I think, is another one. You know, if we talk about Skittles Remix is one of the personalization items that Mars Wrigley has. You can mix your own Skittles. Blake Harrison's in here. He's the master of Skittles Remix, so go find him. But it's not just about fun. It is a very fun, engaging machine, but it boosts the basket size, repeat purchases, and loyalty. And it makes your location a destination, which is a hard thing to do with a vending machine or an unattended retail, not object, but site. So you can take something that's experiential, that's fun and engaging, and generate profit off of it. It's pretty profitable, and consumers love it. And then you can also kind of strategically place that next to your soda machine or your snack vending machine. And so you're not driving people to cross purchase, and you know they pick up their Skittles and maybe they need water to go with it as well. I think the final example here is around loyalty programs. It doesn't just engage consumers. I think at a high level, that's what it does. But to the gatekeeper, it delivers measurable data. It delivers insights that the location can use and that we ultimately can use to better understand the shopper behavior and continue to evolve the offerings so that we can convert shoppers. So if you have 20% of people using a micro market in a break room, and we're understanding what are the benefits that that break room is providing, and what are the gaps, where is it not providing benefits, it's very easy to switch over, and a loyalty program is one of the most basic ways to get at that and understand the data behind it. So it's really around framing it in terms of increasing revenue, increasing consumer satisfaction scores, and increasing retention, which ultimately is what the gatekeepers will be kind of most interested in.
Awesome. So those are some great points you could always take the gatekeeper. From the vendor route laundry industry, what we did was using technology, we could really model the end consumer characteristics, location characteristics, and so on. Now, we do this for a while. When you go to a new location, you've got the data, right? You're not going to talk about the SKUs, number of SKUs you're going to have. You're going to have a performance-based contract with this gatekeeper.
Just to add on, you both touched on really nicely, just communication and the engagement, the relationship, and evaluating sites together is very important. And like our technology, for example, it is not a fit for every vending location. I hope that point was made earlier. I just wanted to say it again in terms of evaluating and really understanding the needs that April just mentioned. There's many cases where a location may not have the volume needed to make the investment for a just walkout store, and smart coolers is a much better solution. So just that line of communication and evaluating opportunities is so important.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue to start with the technology side of things. So let me go to Kenneth, who is building technology.
Yeah. Thank you.
Also running a route to prove the technology. So tell me how can our operators think about picking the right level of technology, right? Depending on the environment, the location, the staff you have, consumer base, and so on.
Yeah, I think a really helpful framework is to sort of match the right technology with the right retail environment. Okay, sorry. Think in terms of public environments versus private environments. To give a few examples, public environments, I think of airports, college dorms, or maybe public transit stations. So you'll see a lot of high foot traffic there and unpredictable customer behavior. Alex touched on earlier, theft could be a potential issue. And then we get all kinds of users, varieties of users, like for instance, travelers, students, tourists, yada, yada, yada. So in those spaces, you don't know who will be using your technology or your coolers or Amazon walkout store. So like, it's better to focus on the top seller optimization, for instance, the real-time sales and like for the transient customers, because you don't know if they're coming back or not. A lot of them are one-time purchase customers. So you want to focus on offline sales capabilities, and you want to focus on theft prevention, as Alex mentioned, because having the right technology to sort of address those issues can be a little tricky, and that's why Vendera put a few things in place to sort of mitigate that. It's always going to be a risk, no matter like how you address it. There are different pros and cons for different issues. But for instance, to open one of the smart coolers, I think the industry-wide practice is to have a pre-auth in place, meaning we're going to put a hold on your car, whatever that amount might be, $5, $20, $50. And we really see it, in our day-to-day lives too. Like, we just don't notice it. Like, we go to a gas station. Sometimes they put a $200 hold on your car. Yeah. Sometimes, like when you go to like stay in California, some gas stations only will allow you to get gas up to $75. So, and that's where the pre-auth really comes in. So we want to give control to the operators. And if they think that, hey, this location we may see higher shrinkage rates, then you might want to put the pre-auth up to $25, $20 instead of like our no locations like $5. And then, so it's really location driven. And then sort of in those locations, you also want to think about dynamic pricing to sort of control the speed of selling. And if you know that you won't restock M&Ms until next week, and you're running out of M&Ms, then you might want to adjust the pricing accordingly to slow down the sales and until your restock go out there, or else you're just leaving money on the table. It could be as low as 50 cents to $1. And then the last thing I think about is sort of the remote diagnostics. Like traditionally, if I want to find out what's wrong with my machines, I have to be in front of one. And to sort of figure out if there's a compressor issue, there's like temperature issue, or it's not taking credit cards. So we sort of put that in our VMS already, and I think many of the companies have as well. So you look at the health of the cooler and see if the credit cards are working, if what's the door locking status. Because there's more at stake, frankly, right? If you run your business in higher traffic locations, even if it's a 20% downtime, that really will affect your sales. So you want to have, and you really want to send the right expert to fix those vending machines. You don't want to send someone who knows how to fix your compressor, but not your management system there. So it really helps with the remote aspect, and then that's going to save you a lot of trips and times, and that's on a public environment. And then for the private environments, think of places like your factories, businesses, break rooms like offices, or even apartment buildings. So I see those more as like slow or steady traffic. You get a lot of repeat customers, be it employees or the residents there. So and those locations have more control access as well. So you know who you're dealing with. So if you know who you're dealing with, these environments they tend to be more stable. So operator can rely on consistency really, and even basic workflow. So you want to know your consumer. So you want to sort of have the know your consumer data, because you may be able to run promos on them, get feedbacks from them, or even have them to offer suggestions of what they want to see inside of those coolers or stores, with different flavors of M&Ms. And even possibly just-in-time pricing. For instance, if I run a micro market, and then I started to put cold foods in there because the locations want us to put more cold foods or hot foods inside the freezer. then those items, they tend to have lower or shorter shorter lifespan. Yeah, shelf life. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. But so you want to optimize your waste. So in order for you to forecast your POs a little better too. So that's what I would say.
I have a few, so as we think about that and we actually bring it to kind of some practical terms, so we have stores out there today. There's smart coolers, there's Just Walk Out stores, there's zip-in stores. So I think there's a lot of learnings that can be had from what's already out there today, and that's how we're just going to continue to optimize. So we have an autonomous store at UNLV. So it's in the student union. It's the first store that we opened, and it's co-branded Mars and First Class Vending. And we've had a ton of learnings around adoption of the technology at the university. So we had thought, our hypothesis going in was that college students are tech savvy, they'll be able to go in, they would understand that you scan a credit card, you walk in, you grab something, you leave. That is not the case, so it was actually a really big learning for us. And we did some consumer research there, and the biggest thing we found was that they were worried that their card wouldn't work for some reason, and they were worried about being embarrassed. And that was the #1 deterrent of people using the store, was they were worried they would be embarrassed, and they didn't want other people around them to think my card's declining, or I don't know how to use this, or whatever it might be. And so it was interesting to kind of put yourself back in college just a year or two ago for most of us. And, you could see, you don't want to be standing there and everyone walking by and, you kind of look like a schmuck standing outside the Just Walk Out store. Can't get your own lens. So I think that there's a lot of learnings that we have, and, the community that we have here at the NAMA show is so close-knit that there's so many learnings to be had that, or reaching out to Alex or myself or anybody that's kind of testing these things out, if you're interested in it, talk to other people because there's a ton of learnings. And then the other thing I was going to add, also based on the zip-in store that we have, Kenneth was talking about authorizations and, kind of how you determine the authorization. One of the other things we learned that was not on our radar is that college kids are very savvy with pre-authorizations. And so they would get a gift card that maybe has $1 on it. And it would let them in the store, they would charge the $1, and then they clean out the store and leave. And you try to charge them $50 and you can't because the gift card only had $1 on it. So all sorts of things that you learn kind of as you do these things. And so with Mars, we are very much in a test and learn mode right now. As we have zip-in technology, we have Amazon Just Walk Out technology, different location types between travel and higher education. And as we continue to invest, we're going to get more insights like that. That is just going to continue to advance the adoption of this technology for the consumers and then also on the operator side.
Can I touch on that real quick? On the gift card side, yeah, that's a great point that April just brought up. So I think we also learned that in a painful way. We had to adapt to it. So you sort of have to learn from your customer and sort of adapt to the market. And what we're currently doing right now is to have a bin of all the prepaid cards, gift cards, all the other cards that you may think of, and then we update that regularly. So we're now able to block them from using our coolers just because, hey, if you're using these, given that there's still risk because these bins only update every now and then or regularly. So, and if more and more gift cards are coming out, say, if they come out at a weekly basis, we still would have to, there's still a lag, but for the most part, we're doing a really good job of controlling the bad debt coming from that.
Awesome. Yeah, we learned that. We've been doing this since 2018. Gift cards was a problem, so not allowed in Just Walk Out stores, and to encourage this and give people confidence, right? If a customer enters with a credit card, they only have $10 left, pre-auth is $5. We do cover transactions, like if it's non-payment up to $100, right? So this is part of the Amazon solution to give customers like yourselves confidence, because it doesn't happen that often. And there's now authentication and risk evaluations that take place when someone taps a card, and there could be a higher pre-auth for certain customers that might be past offenders or something like that. So it is something we monitor quite closely. Good.
I think a good data reference point is if we compare to this average retail loss, our internal data shows there's about less than 0.5% that comes from the bad debt versus our average retail loss across the industry was 3%. So it's still significantly better than your traditional way of doing business.
Awesome. Love the dialogue. This is the future in the making, right? These are the examples. Amazing. Yeah. Let's do this. We have about 8 minutes left, so let me go to Kenneth with one more question. I can't miss this, right? So
Yeah.
I'll talk about AI, artificial intelligence.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the.
We'll do one quickly. Let's give at a very high level.
Sure.
Can you explain some of the right and the wrong things in AI?
Yeah. I'll touch on. I have many points, but I'll touch one point on each. I would say like the right way of using AI is to, if I had to pinpoint one thing is shelf level tracking, because right now a lot of us is spending a lot of time on restocking. If you could really just optimize, having AI help you, tell you exactly instead of what to bring, instead of you making your own heuristic decision, and that decision and that knowledge a lot of times can't be transferred. When you're training new employees, when you have turnover, and that sort of some of the knowledge just can't be retained or it's lost. So if you have an AI that helps you make all of the decisions and tell you exactly what to bring and what to purchase, and that's really going to unleash you from doing other things that you could generate higher value for. And I would say one misconception or a misapplication of AI in the industry would be, expecting personalization in a high turnover. I think we talked about this a little bit. So if your user has no consistency, that means you can't really have real personalization. So you should instead shift your focus to selling your top sellers to some of your best-selling locations.
Awesome. Thank you. Kind of sum it up there, right? So this technology, these tech words might be tech jargon, but if you invest in the right technology today, these AI and other levers will come to you. Right? So let's open it up. I'd love to hear from the audience. Yeah, we have a mic here. Feel free to.
I'm loud enough, sorry.
Awesome.
So, I love this technology. We've tried to utilize JWO, and one of the questions I have was why one of the highest ranked locations are Amazon warehouses, and highest revenue locations are Amazon warehouses, and that technology is not being used there. So that's one point. The other point is the VDI integration. Where are we at on VDI integration of this technology? One-off location as a pilot is fine, but when you're trying to scale this in any which way, whether it's Zip-In, whether it's JWO, it's impossible to scale it without VDI integration. I hope it was loud enough.
Yeah, no, super clear. I can't comment on the fulfillment question. It's a very good one. But on your second part on the integrations, like we have all the ready-made APIs, right? So it becomes a matter of your POS provider, building the bridge for that, right?
There's already a bridge built called VDI.
I'm not on the technical product side of our business, but after this, I'd love to understand what VDI is. Sorry, is that a known term?
Yes.
Okay, let's chat about that afterwards, because maybe you're right, it's already there.
Please.
This may be a biased question you may not want to answer right now, but as smart vending and also your micro vending, is there a preferred vendor that you guys use as far as your cashless payment system?
Yeah, our standard out of the box, we work with Chase PT Tech, and then we have integrations built with Adyen, WillPay, Free Transacts. Yeah, we have a handful. If there's a specific one you're you're wanting to know about, we can chat about that.
Okay, we'll chat about it.
Okay.
If there's one takeaway I can comment real quick about this panel, just on AI cooler. Like, I see a lot of people making the same mistake when they buy our coolers. Like, they're still treating the cooler as if it was a legacy vending machine. So a lot of our customers, they still only put drinks inside, or maybe only snacks inside, and it sort of defeats the no pun intended cooler model. It's because the only way for you to really increase revenue, to increase more sales, is either you sell more on the back. You either get more from the traffic, maybe in a given location, or you increase the basket size. So in order to increase the basket size, you want to offer varieties. And if you only selling drinks, or you're only selling snacks, when I open the door, I'm not going to grab 4 or 5 drinks, but I'll buy 2 bottles of water and and three bags of chips. And that's why I think coolers might reshape the new vending era.
Accessibility. I happen to be a blind vendor. What are you guys doing about accessibility?
For Just Walk Out specifically, I know there's a product roadmap. I can't speak to it in terms of specifics, but if you like, we can chat after this. Happy to share how we're thinking about that.
You don't have nothing in place right now. There's nothing. It don't talk.
Depending on integration, like university campuses, they have different apps, right? And those have voice commands already embedded. So there could be solutions that already exist. It's not something I personally am familiar with. There's quite a big division within Amazon on the business development side and the product side, so I don't know the full roadmap and all those capabilities, but happy to discuss what I know with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. To wrap this up, so we have a QR code over there. Please give your feedback over there. Also, there's a post-session handout you can download with some of these key points, and you'll find the contact information for the speakers as well. Thank you, panelists. We have a couple of minutes weekend.
Good job,
guys. Hello.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I'm from New Zealand.
Oh.